Yeah. Okay. We'll go online, so we'll get the meeting started. I believe it's 7:30 to get 7:31 by mine. So we'll call the meeting to order. And first thing, pledge of allegiance. So Anton, you want to lead the pledge, sir?
Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First off, I'd like to welcome everybody for coming tonight. And I'm going to read a comment here, public comment statement. Welcome to this meeting of your school board. The Paloma School Board of Directors values the opinions and input of students, staff, parents, and community members. Although board meetings are held in public, they are not meetings of the public. The board may allow public comment and questions during the meeting, but it is not legally required to do so. During the meeting tonight, we will be taking public comment to address the issues around safety protocols. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you intend to speak to the board this evening, you will need to fill out one of the green comment cards located near the door and hand it to the board's executive assistant, William Edmonds, right over there. Public comment may also be made via Zoom if the executive assistant is notified by 3 p.m. today of your intention to participate. Please be respectful in your comments as you direct them to the board. When you're called up to speak, move to the table, the small table in front of the board, state your full name and address prior to sharing. If you have written comments to share with the board, you may hand one copy to the board's executive assistant, who will distribute to all board members for consideration after the meeting. So we'll get started. Joe, I think, was going to start off by reading the first email that we got. Okay,
Yes, this is from Trina McGahey. She didn't provide an address, but dear Superintendent Halliday and board members, I'm writing to provide my support for the governor's K-12 in-school mask mandate. I know you all don't really have a choice about following this mandate, and quite frankly, I'm glad about that. I know you've probably been receiving a lot of negative feedback on the mandate, and I wanted to make sure you also heard from a parent that is happy about the mandate. My middle schooler is fully vaccinated, as is our whole family. However, there are too many children that are either not yet eligible for the vaccine or have parents that do not want to vaccinate their children. There are also those that, due to medical reasons, cannot be vaccinated. Our family feels it is important to do our part to protect the most vulnerable. The Delta variant is showing to be more contagious and more virulent than the original virus, and is currently spreading through the unvaccinated at a horrifying rate. It is also hitting kids harder than the original virus did. While I have concerns about sending my child back to school, knowing that everyone will be masked while indoors is a great relief. Online school did not go well for him last year, and his grades and mental health improved dramatically when in-person schooling opened up in the spring. Back in school with a mask on is so much better than at home staring at a screen. I don't know if I will make the board meeting tonight, but know that I and many others in the community support the work you've all done to keep things running this past year, and that we are in full support of the mask mandate. Sincerely, Trina McGahey.
Okay, so we'll just go down the list here. I've got the green cards that people can turn in to Lillian. And just everybody, I'd like to remind you to be respectful. Jesse Brown.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Jesse Brown. I live at 23925 Evidence Road, Bologna. I'm going to read it because otherwise it's completely scattered. So, a quick background. My daughter has been a student in the district since kindergarten. She will be a fifth grader this coming year. We have loved the teachers she has had and the friendships she has made. Last spring, we pulled her from the district to homeschool the remainder of the year. This decision was fueled by mask mandates and inconsistency and lack of transparency by the district. Also, during the transition to hybrid, the district pointed fingers at local teachers' unions regarding a threat of lawsuit, which, from what I understand, was false. This created a wedge between parents and teachers, and it caused real damage in our community. I want to state that I firmly reject any mandate that takes parents out of the equation. It is wrong. As a parent, it is my job to know what is best for my child's health and well-being. No government entity has the ability to make these decisions for my child. They are not qualified to know what her individual needs are. I realize that you are not the creators of the mandates, but you are the vectors that drive them. Did you make masks optional when you had the opportunity? No. The district once again pointed to outside government entities who are incapable of making decisions for our individual children. Did Benton County Health hear the parents' concerns? No, you did. To think masking does not have serious adverse effects is short-sighted and lacks empathy. Masks and distancing have stunted social development and has caused children to be anxious and depressed. Real damage has been caused to my family, to my daughter. Now I realize other parents want their kids masked, and I encourage them to do what is right for their child. It's about choice and looking to our children's unique needs. It's important for me to state I have been so impressed with the majority of teachers of this district, especially Byron Holbray. He made my child laugh last year when it was so difficult for her, and for that I am so thankful. Lastly, every step of the way, we have consulted our daughter on her thoughts. I asked her if she had anything she would like me to share with you tonight. She said, I don't like masks. I almost passed out in the store because I was wearing one and I felt like I couldn't breathe and my chest hurt. Please don't make me wear one. She's referring to a very scary panic attack she had. She didn't know what was going on. She has tremendous anxiety wearing masks. This is not coming from me and her father. This is her personal thing. So I ask you to think of our children's mental health as well as their physical health. Thank you.
Merritt, and I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. Bovbjerg.
Take a stab at it.
What's that?
You could take a stab at it. No, that's
No,
I'm Lauren Hobart. My address is 25737 Southwest Airport Avenue. We have 3 kids who've gone through the Columbia District who have already graduated, and our son is starting 8th grade. And I'm also an epidemiologist with 20 years experience in that field. And I am here just to say that I fully support the mask mandates from a public health perspective. The governor's office has made the right call here, and I'm really glad they took that out of your hands so that, you know, parents are directing their anger elsewhere and not at you guys. Masks are super important, especially for kids who can't be vaccinated, but especially with the Delta variant, and we are not. And the number of people that are infected with each case right now is really high, and masks, as well as ventilation and outside spaces and homework and everything else is really what we need to be doing. So
thank you. Is it Victor?
Yeah. Hi,
Hi.
I'm with her. 737, yeah, I live with that last name. So it might surprise you to know that I am not pro-mask. But I am anti going back to remote learning on 1 day's notice. And I don't like putting this thing back on after having it off for a while. Some of you know our son Tiernan going into 8th grade. He's not going to be happy about it, But as good a job as this district did with remote learning last year, and y'all did a really good job. He was much happier being back in school. And if the choice is being back with a mask on, or running the risk of waking up one morning and having a new mandate that says everyone go home, I'm willing to roll the dice and I'll have a mask on where I work, and Kieran won't like it, but he can have a mask on here. So that's kind of my practical position on this. The other thing I want to say is that, we've had 3 kids through this district, and there's never been a moment, I think many of us would agree here, that this district has not had our kids' best interest in mind. I don't always agree with what the district has to do, but you know what? This district always has the kids' best interest in mind, and the decisions you make to keep everyone safe, including yourselves, will be behind you whichever way it goes, and support you through this school year. So thanks very much for supporting our kids and for considering their safety as they go back to school.
Thank you. Sherry Kramer.
Thank you for allowing us to talk. Do you need my address?
Yeah.
Okay, 629 Macaulay. Below. I have 3 kids in the school district, community members, and I'm sure you're aware of the other school districts that are doing what they can to accommodate both sides of the spectrum. Just like we saw tonight, 2 different people, 2 different ideologies behind what they believe. So as you are willing to accommodate the students, well, my question is, are you willing to accommodate the students whose educations are negatively impacted by restricted breathing and mass distraction? And will you be willing to also accommodate these students and families via the 504 request? Are you aware of how else the school district is handling it in other school districts across Oregon?
I'm not familiar with what else he's doing.
Are you familiar with the 504 request? Will you guys accommodate that for the children who are on the other side of the spectrum?
I want to be thoughtful to our board chair because it's your meeting, to be able to say, is this our opportunity to answer questions, or is this our opportunity for public input? Because I'm happy to answer the question, but I don't want to.
I guess we can answer this question because I don't know what exactly she's asking.
Right, and the question is, if it impedes a life function, and there is a 504 in place as a possibility, what will we do? And will that always mean that we will allow, are we looking at using that as a way to allow a student not to wear a face cover? Am I right?
Yes. So as we've heard even tonight, the anxiety it causes, the distraction in education it causes, of course, just giving the choice basically is taken out of the parents' hands, right? And so I'm asking, will this school district be willing to accommodate that, the students on the other side?
We're not going to get into a conversation tonight because this is just a kind of a listening session for us. And then we'll take it under advisement and talk as a board. What's that? Yeah, that's why I say we'll talk as a board and investigate it. And I hope that we do what's best for the kids. That's what I've always said and I want to do. And people that know me know that, that's kind of the bottom line. So.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, thinking about the children. And so then I would just finish by saying then forcing children to cover their faces and telling them that the air is toxic, that everyone around them is sick, that the health effects of breathing through a dirty mask aren't considered, as children touch their face a lot when they have masks on. And then not even being able to see the teacher enunciate words can impact their learning very negatively. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to make one comment to something that you just said on enunciating words. I don't hear very well, and a mask is a big deterrent to me to try to hear what people are saying a lot of the times, because I can't hear what they're saying, and a lot of times I can kind of read lips a little bit over the years. I've learned how to do that. So just to that point, that it's also hard for me when people have a mask on to understand them sometimes. So Sarah Mars.
Sarah Mars, my address is 34989 Goshawk Lane in Philomath. It's a little lengthy, sorry. I have a daughter entering kindergarten and a son entering 2nd grade. My husband and I have decided to pull our children from the Philomath School District. This makes me sad and disappointed, especially since my husband and I both grew up here. A lot has changed over the years, but this past year has made certain things clear. The leadership in Philomath tends to shift blame. There's oftentimes a lack of transparency, and I do not feel that every child's best interests are met. I'm aware that a lot of the decisions over the past year have been made out of district, and I'm aware of how Philomath doesn't seem to question anything they're mandated to follow, regardless of how it affects the kids and have no backbone. Susan mentioned that Benton County Health is helping with the science information to support decisions. Can you please share the science that you've learned about with us this evening? Through the science studies and research that I've read about, I've learned that 0 children have died from COVID that did not have an underlying condition. Masking is a psychological stressor for children and disrupts learning, reduces their ability to communicate. Laughing and smiling is less recognizable and negative emotions are amplified. Cases of anxiety, depression, and suicide have gone through the roof. Kids are more likely to die from drowning, car accidents, cancer, suicide, and the flu than they are from COVID. The PCR test cannot even differentiate between the common flu and COVID. You're requiring kids to wear bacteria-filled masks all day covering the dirtiest part of their body. The excuse of younger children not being able to be vaccinated yet is a sad one. In just 6 months, more have died from these shots than in 20 years of every single vaccine given in America. There is nothing stronger than our immune system. It's okay to get sick once in a while. We will always live with infection and disease. If you want to find real ways to be healthy, go exercise, eat better, get proper sleep, etc. Stop living in fear and trying to bring others along with you. While reading under the school's prohibitions on use of certain restraints, it says, any restraint that impedes or creates the risk of impeding breathing. If you can please explain that. Now let's talk about choice. Nobody should bear the burden of somebody else's fears, anxieties, and beliefs that are at the expense of their own fears, anxieties, and beliefs. Why should someone, especially a child, be forced to disregard their own feelings to pacify another's? That's a great thing about choice. It will allow parents to do what they feel is right for their child and their family. I do not co-parent with anyone at the federal or state level, nor do I co-parent with a school district. None of you can get to make medical decisions for my children. That is my job. I know that we all have our own opinions, and that's fine, but we all need to be able to make our own choices. Please stand up to these people, as many of us parents have, and be a voice for our children. Stop bowing down. These kids are our future. If you want them to take care of you down the road, show them that you care now. Let's not forget about other agendas being pushed in Oregon, such as bringing critical race theory and early sex ed into curriculums. Stop letting the government and teachers unions use our children as pawns to push their agendas. Now is the time for superintendents, school boards, and teachers to be fighting with us. And lastly, if it is not in your child's best interest to be masked, be sure to look into a 504 for them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's all that's signed up for the public comment. So now we will go to Susan with the superintendent report.
Was there another one? Was there another one? I'll see a green card on our desk, and then it's still out.
Lillian, was there another for public comment?
I'm sorry, yes.
Oh,
Apparently people on YouTube have been having a little trouble hearing when you're trying to figure out how to.
I don't know anything about it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Maybe the person who's speaking, if they can make sure and
and speak up
Speak
and
louder.
speak a little slower so that people can understand, because I think where the microphone is and we're still trying to get all the details about how this works.
Abigail Kaufman.
I think it has to be.
I don't know if you heard Lillian, but if you could speak up, because I guess we're having a little trouble with it.
I will use a big voice.
Okay.
Is that good?
All right.
All
Thank you.
Abigail Kirkman, 33912 Marys River Estates Road. And I know I'm relatively newer to the Philomath community, but I've been teaching for, what is it now, 7 years. And I know that it's been really impactful when talking to students, whether my youngest sibling who just finished out their senior year this year, or students as I was subbing here in the district, to be able to hear some of that anxiety that also comes from the students when they're seeing that we're maybe not following protocols as carefully as they want us to. Because I really hear a lot of what I'm hearing tonight has to do with empathy and students' mental health. And there's such a huge challenge around making sure that we're meeting the mental health challenges that COVID has brought to students' lives. And that is a really real concern. And I absolutely agree that we need to meet mental health and that we need to build empathy. And also, part of that building empathy is understanding that sometimes we have to do things to take care of each other, even if they're not what we want to do, because not everyone has the same choices. And so I really appreciate the mandate in that it will ensure that a student who has, no control over what's happening in the environment knows that everyone's at least going to be following a certain level of safety protocol consistently. And we can address some of those bigger concerns with accurate health information in terms of students having that ramping anxiety. And there's a lot of strategies and tools that we can use to help kiddos with anxiety as well, and ways to work around with the kind of creative solutions around technology and problem solving that have been brought to bear during the pandemic. So I'm just really hopeful for our ability to meet students' needs with empathy building and mental health support, while also protecting health, since not everyone has the same choices available. So having masks really helps to protect safety, health, lives as well. So just thank you for your time and good luck with the challenging, it's a challenging time. So appreciate your leadership in this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I think we are finished with public comment, so we'll go to Susan.
And I just wanted to put out, and some of you saw pieces of this in a letter that I had sent. I can write the button here. And there are other pieces of it as well, because one of the things that I've heard a lot of is that I don't have the best interest of children in mind. And one of the things that I was hired for was to look out for the best interest of students every day, and to be able to keep the district operational, and to be able to look out for the health and safety of all our kids. So I believe that that's what I'm doing. And it doesn't match necessarily with what people have been asking for. So I want to express the conversation or the comments about not listening and not standing up versus having a different opinion. So I'm going to turn on this thing right here. Try not to bore you.
This one.
I think it'll be fine.
Oh, come on, it's not your first time sitting in this front.
And it'll just turn itself on. And so what I'll tell you is it's doing its thing to warm up is I happen to be in agreement with the recommendation of our governor at this time for staff and students to wear face coverings indoors during the instructional day, which is what the request is. My rationale is based on the current science of COVID-19 and what I believe to be the best interest of our students and community. At the state level, as well as here, the policies or the mandates will be reviewed on a monthly level, or excuse me, on a monthly basis, with the target of being able to look at when things become local control again and when they do not. The idea is to keep students, as many as possible, in-person learning at school as much as can be. In the survey that we put out, 97.5% of parents said, I want my student to come back to in-person instruction. There's a difference in what that looks like. So the critical question about kids is the face masks, and before the mandate came out, this was put together. And I need to tell you that my connections do run the gamut from people saying that COVID is a personal deal and not a public health issue, to a family I know who signed their child up for the clinical trials for vaccinations for children that are 12 years old. So the information for me runs that gamut. I believe that the district has not let our students down by a lack of advocacy. Our students are caught in the throes of a global pandemic and related polarizing divide, and COVID fatigue is evident everywhere. While I personally would prefer not to wear a face covering, I am committed to doing it for the health benefits of our students and community. It's not just about me getting sick, but it's also about me being able to share the virus with someone else. If it's just about me, then I would make a difference, or just about the individual, my decision would be different than what it means for other people around. What else here? I respect parent choice as an option for our families. And know that people are going to make decisions that they need to make for their kids. One of the things that I put out in our letter, because some people had said things like, you know, we've been out all summer, and we have, and that's been great. School is a longer period of time where students are in session, and unlike play dates or even sports tournaments or something like that of 100 kids, is not the same outside. It's not the same as 150 to 400 students in a school each day. And so that volume really causes us to take a look at the numbers of people that are interacting for a period of time each day. So I look at the excitement of the opportunities that we have and am supporting and promoting permission, if you will, for this to be a year where we're looking at specifically whole student learning. It's easy to be able to say there's going to be academic deficit. I want us to focus on more than academic deficit because kids are whole people. They have an emotional side. They have a social side. And there's all those other elements that we need to be able to be aware of, because I know that last year took its toll. So to put some things out there about why I'm excited, in-person learning last year, our full in-person learning didn't start until the 1st of May. This year we're starting September 7th, right at the first of the shoot. The length of the week, we're going 5 days, starting with our early release Friday. In the last year, we were 4 days a week in CDL. In hybrid, we were 2 days a week and 2 days a week in school and 2 days online. And in person was 4 days a week. For student mental health considerations, I look at that a little bit differently in that last year there was in-person learning time was limited with limited interaction with peers and school staff. This year, even if having to wear a face covering inside, students will be in school together from the start, and they will be able to more freely interact regularly with peers and with other school staff. You can see the difference in our student instructional time. Last year, kindergarten for first grade was 250 minutes a day. we're going to be as full-time at 325 minutes a day. So we're increasing instructional time in being able to support students. With the mandatory face covering, last year, face coverings were worn inside and outside. There were causes for individual mask breaks. I've had a couple of comments from some parents that said, my child will never ask for that. And so we're looking at those in a different way this year to be able to say, how can we support those opportunities for our kids without forcing them to be able to ask? This year, we're talking about at this time, wearing face coverings inside only. The ability to use face shields if individually needed. Continuing with the individual mask break and not requiring during meals. So I put some of the Oregon Department of Education information in here from their updated statute. I also look at our Benton County numbers that continue to continue to raise over the summer. So we went from in the end of June at 27.5 cases per 100,000 to 86.6. We went from 1.5% test positivity to 4.7. So we're seeing those increases that are happening all over the place. CDC says students benefit from in-person learning and safely returning to in-person instruction. And they reference vaccinations. That vaccinations remain a personal choice. We're not going to get into that game of even walking down that road. In addition to universal masking, the CDC recommends at least 3 feet of physical distance between students within classrooms, so we're watching out for that. I also looked for and found from the state epidemiologist the common questions about kids in face masks. And so it addresses things like, can wearing a mask make it harder for my child to breathe? Can masks interfere with a child's lung development? The answer to that is no. Do masks trap the carbon dioxide that we normally breathe out? No. Can masks lead to a weaker immune system by putting the body under stress? No. Now, that doesn't mean that individual students aren't feeling the difference. We've got opportunities to be able to look at removing face coverings while students are outside and really doing some intentional mask breaking. My belief is that the benefit of having students with their peers and with teachers will outweigh the length of time that we need to be a part of mandatory face coverings. This is all online, so you could be able to read that. I also keep track of our vaccination rates in our county and in our area, because I'm looking to what are things that are happening within our zip code and our attendance area that would cause us to be able to shift decisions. So that's something that we're constantly looking at, and the research that has gone into being able to take me to where I stand with this today. Do I want to wear face coverings all year? No. But do I believe there's going to be merit in being able to do that in the early part of the year to be able to protect us all? Yes, I do. I think that's going to be real helpful.
Susan, I have a question, and I'm sorry to interrupt. You're willing to shift your decision based on our demographics, and you just said that you're not willing to make a decision based on our demographics of what your community wants?
Not at this point, because the other part of things that I believe that right now we're in a position where there are a lot of people inclusive of our community at risk.
So you're willing to shift your decision?
If there are
the key point.
If there are metrics and information that cause us to be able to shift that appropriately and safely, we will do that in terms of following the guidance that we have out there.
Okay. Thank you, Francis.
You know exactly the risk, how many kids under the age of 12 have been infected with COVID-19 and what the risk is to their health as far as mortality?
What I've looked at, let me find what I had here. There, let's see, this was the 5th of August. In the last week alone, according to the report from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association, nearly 72,000 cases were reported in children, roughly 19% of the total number of new cases nationwide. The daily average of cases more than doubled.
These are cases though.
Not cases, actual problems.
The mortality.
What did you, oh, the mortality.
How many people are actually, how many kids are?
There's been what's the actual risk?
4 children 0 to 19 that have died out of 4,000 or 40,042.
Is that in the state of Oregon?
That's in the state of Oregon. That's 99.99% survival rate. And that's from their information today on the website.
Right. The other part of that is really about if it's just ourselves, and the only people at risk are ourselves, that's one thing. But as a carrier, if I get it, I don't want to see one of our children die. But the other thing is I can pass that on to other people. And so I'm putting others at risk within families and things like that.
So hang on just a minute. She had her hand up first behind you.
I find.
No, wait.
I'm finding that the risk of what masking is causing our students and our kids with, sorry, I lost my train of thought, with suicide, with self-harm, is anxiety is greater than the number of kids we're seeing die and in the hospital. All of those are serious, but I think we're losing more, which I don't know the stats, to the increase in suicide than we are to coronavirus itself.
Children.
That's I with, yeah.
Okay,
This one.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So echoing what Mrs. Halliday said, the issue with kids, mostly kids don't get serious coronavirus. It is changing a little bit with the Delta variant, but there's excellent evidence that they do pass it to people that they live with. That means parents, that means grandparents, and they do get serious cases, and that's a big problem. A lot of the mental health challenges we see with COVID are because of the COVID and the restrictions and not masks per se. And everyone, I didn't say anything about your child. I'm speaking from a public health perspective. And from a public health perspective, there have been a lot of mental health challenges this last year. We've all seen that. I think that's partly the remote learning that we were trying to do and the not seeing your friends that we had. And we can solve that and go back to school in person if we take appropriate safety protocols, which includes masking up so that kids don't spread it to their friends, who don't spread it to their grandparents, who don't spread it to bus drivers.
Or stay home or sick.
okay, well, we're not gonna get into conversations like that. You're next.
Yeah, you made a comment about, not wanting to see one of our kids die because they get COVID. There was a lot of cases last year across the state of kids passing out or nearly dying because of wearing masks and lack of oxygen. So are you prepared to see a kid go down and die because they can't breathe?
No.
So, I mean-
A question was raised about that to me.
So are we considering that, I guess? I mean, it's a serious consideration. It's happened across the state where people almost barely survive from that.
So I just want to comment on different comments about the kids being, not at risk for themselves and then taking it home or spreading it to somebody else. And I just want to say, I'm also in the health field, I'm a nurse, and the availability of the vaccine for the people that would like to take it is completely out there, and it has been for months and months and months now. So my kids passing it on to someone, if that person has not made the choice to get vaccinated and to protect themselves, it's really not my child's responsibility to protect them.
I would like to know if anybody has statistics on the actual, and I doubt there actually is because it's kind of a hard thing to test, but the actual results of people wearing masks, like the effectivity of wearing them, because I know that the N95 respirators that are supposed to be top of the line, best that we can do to fight this, they block particles as small as 0.6 microns, yet the coronavirus is 0.03 microns. And masks, we're just wearing regular cloth face coverings that are gonna allow like 10 to 15 microns, hundreds and hundreds of times greater. That's like a mouse walking through that door. Like it literally, it does not protect us. That's just my opinion, like science wise.
Okay. Did you have your hand back up? No? Great.
I can add to his point. I have a science degree, I have an engineering degree, I can read numbers. And the size of the virus and the size of the opening of all the masks, it's like putting up a chain link fence to keep mosquitoes out. I've looked at the size of it too. It's worse, but it's worse than that. It's way wider than a chain link fence to keep mosquitoes out. It's going right through.
Okay. Did you have your hand up?
Well, I work in the health field and I have to wear an N95 mask when I encounter someone that's a known positive COVID patient. I would be fired if I wore the cloth mask. It does, so there's, obviously it doesn't protect because I wouldn't be allowed to go into that room with a cloth or surgical mask, whatever you want to call it. And I also want to know why weren't these measures taken for the flu season every year when there's 450 deaths a year for the flu, and we've had 332 of COVID. This for kids 18 and under.
I have 336.
Okay. Yeah, and then it's actually less than that because the CDC admitted that 35% of those deaths can't even be tracked back to COVID. They just happen to have it. So why weren't these measures taken, every flu season? Because we know that masks don't stop airborne virus.
I do remember like going up through Columbus schools after this, whenever it would come into flu season, in winter term, then we'd have like morning announcements and they'd say like, they put out hand sanitizer stations maybe around the school and say like, hey, use some hand sanitizer, it's flu season. I mean, it's a virus, it's a very similar virus and like it's respiratory illness. And it obviously has a greater mortality rate, like you were saying, than COVID does. And so I just don't understand where all this is coming from, like he's talking about. Yeah.
Okay, we got time for one more comment, and she's had her hand up back here very politely.
So about the size of the particle, what we're trying to block are droplets and not the virus itself. The virus then dissolves into the air droplets that you breathe out, and you go onto a mirror and it clouds up because you're breathing out droplets, and that's what the masks stop. And then somebody asked about evidence for mask safety, and there was a study from Missouri published by Dawson et al. This last year. Schools that implemented masks, physical distancing, and increased ventilation had much lower transmission than in the community. A study from Utah, Rochelle et al. From 2021, much higher community incidence and inability to stay students stressed. So schools that couldn't physically distance or implemented masks had lower transmission among kids. The same is true in Wisconsin, a study by Falk et al. And the same was true in Florida, a study by Doyle et al. There's also lots of international evidence, including the recent outbreak in Queensland, Australia, which was driven entirely by kids at schools and passing it around to their families.
Everybody has a chance to be back.
Okay, we're gonna close the public comment portion of the meeting right now. It's 15 after 8, we're gonna go till 8:30. And we're gonna open it up for board discussion. And if you have questions for Susan or whatever, then we can discuss that. So who wants to start? We'll be back.
I would just start off by saying that I support Susan and the decision that she's made for our school district. The state has mandated the protocols. I believe that we are right in following those. And I know our goal is to get as many kids back in the school for full time as possible. And I think masking is the way to do that.
I second that, I concur. My wife is a surgical nurse and wears N95 masks on a regular basis. My daughter is a nurse as well. And yes, it's the droplets, it's not the virus particles themselves individually that the masks are helping reduce. And yeah, if you do a good study of the research, masks help.
I would also like to publicly state my support for this decision that the Superintendent Halliday has made. There is a little chance that anything I have to say would change the minds of anyone in this room. But I will say that public health is not political, and carrying empathy and supporting people is what I would hope for the other students in the school district. What I've taught my children is to be empathetic and caring. So hopefully that's what we will see moving forward.
Yeah, I believe in public health. I think that the governor has basically indicated that as school districts, we have a mandate as evidenced by Superintendent Halliday. And obviously there's financial implications if we don't follow that mandate, as well as public health implications. I'm glad that the school district is committed to getting students as much as possible back into school, or at least having that option. And I'm also glad that the district has another option available for students who may not want to take that for whatever personal or families, whatever personal belief they may have. I'm glad that we have a community that supports both those options. And I'm eager for a time when we can get back to more pre-COVID, non-masked, in-person, old-time instruction, like everybody else. But I'm glad that the district has been committed to getting students back in school first and foremost, and then also being committed to a secondary option for those families who don't feel comfortable with that.
I have to more agree with Andy. Or Anton.
That's fine. Either works. Either works.
It was Andy long before.
It was. That's good. Yep.
I believe wholeheartedly in choice. But in this instance, the state has us over a barrel. It's a financial implications to us if we go against what they say. I'm not in favor.
Have you tried?
What's that?
Have you tried though?
Let me finish, okay? I'm not in favor of this mandate that she came out with. I believe that we should have a choice. Everybody should have choices. I understand that there's health issues, mental health issues with this. It's a tough thing to deal with, and I think that we should put pressure on the state, the governor, to give it back to local control. And
How are you gonna do that?
Wait.
Everybody
okay, everybody has a. I'm not gonna
disagree.
Wait a minute.
On the board.
Wait a minute.
Everybody.
We're having a discussion here. We're not. I don't need you to interrupt the discussion.
Well, you know,
Okay.
public comment wasn't that long and everybody on there disagrees with you.
We had 45. Yeah, that's the object of having 5 different people. We don't all have to think the same.
I understand.
So now we have 45 minutes for public comment. That's it. We're discussing it as a board.
I'll respect that.
Okay. No, I'm not taking any more public comment.
It's not a comment.
Oh,
I was just wondering if you guys would also discuss what will be the plan when students, at least over half, if we're representing the community here, show up to school without masks on. I'm just wondering, like.
Or
yes,
move
continue
this.
to
I
discuss
don't
it.
know, huh?
Or move districts.
Well, that's. Anyhow, back to what we're doing right here. We don't all have to agree. Yeah, I'm kind of the outlier on this deal here, as you can see. You know, I believe in personal choice. And I believe that it is doing harm to a lot of students mentally with their mental health and stuff. But you have to look at part of it as a greater good, but I don't know whether it's a greater good or not. I believe in the choice, and I think that personally, they should be able to do whatever best for the student, and that's always going to be my thing, is what's best for the student. And you know, she had a deal up there that Philomath has a 69.1 vaccination rate. County has 65.8. I don't know what the state is, but I'm guessing that we're way above what the state is. So I really think that that's a big plus to the district and the county. So everybody understands, I'm not in favor of the mask mandate.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna discuss it as a board, and we're gonna do it as a board now, because we had 45 minutes for the public comment. So.
Yeah, I say I support the mask mandate, but I support masks generally in this situation. If the CDC, if the government or your health authority says, okay, it's optional again, you don't have to wear a mask, I'm perfectly willing to revisit that and say, okay, maybe choice, maybe parent choice, maybe student choice is fine. But right now, that's not even an option. We are mandated, and we will be severely financially penalized if we don't follow that mandate. And so our hands are sort of tied.
That's right. And then back to the question, and I'll ask Susan, if there is any sort of plan if students show up without a mask, if we have a plan, or if we're in the development stages for a plan, if they don't show up if they show up without a mask.
Our encouragement will be the Philomath Academy to be able to look at an online option, because we've got masks required in our schools for all staff and students right now. Vaccination staff.
Susan, are you prepared to sit down with every single family who's willing to bring in and work up a 504 plan? Because that is what's going on in local districts. It is a federally protected ADA for emotional stress and grief. It's a protected disability, and it is something that's readily available by every family in the country to obtain. It does require the district to sit down with the family and establish a plan of action that will have overlaying PPE in place of masks. Are you prepared for dealing with an entire district bringing you those requests?
Yeah, if we have to take a look at that, then we'll take a look at that.
Fantastic.
Because the other thing is, you've got a team that makes that determination about whether a 504 is needed or required or not. We've opened up the doors to, or the state's opened up the doors to a face shield as a viable option, as opposed to a mask, if it better fits the needs of the student. I've had a request about, can gaiters be used? And I never thought that was an issue, but yeah, I mean, they're fine. For some people who feel comfortable in that way. But we have to take a look at that.
Is the shield a recent thing? Because I've been in communication with a number of staff members, particularly at the primary school, that have been advised they will not be allowed to wear a shield, and that is a huge area of concern both for teaching staff and parents, because there's a number of parents in this room, teachers, medical professionals, therapy, speech therapists, etc., where Rick Wells is a prime example, being able to see mouth movement, and when you've got incoming kindergartners who can't get their L's, W's, and R's correct, that is a huge issue.
Right, and speech therapists have always had the opportunity to be able to use face shields. That's never been something out of their purview to be able to do.
I was just told yesterday from a staff member that they were not going to be allowed to wear that. And I was in their defense, I would like to.
The state's guidance talks about face shields being allowable, not wholesale, but in specific situations where instances require. We're not gonna answer all the 504 questions. We say we can't, but. Oh, and I put it in my board report.
So the board report.
Okay, is there
No, that's fine.
any more comment from board members?
The question was about the reference to the revised statute for the mask mandate in schools. And that is in the board report that's on the website, so it's there if somebody wanted to refer to it. That's a big topic.
We have to take action on this tonight.
Well, we start school, so it's kind of like, we wait till the 26th, or,
Well, do we do it tonight or do it the 26th? Which is your preference?
well, my preference would be we make a decision so that we know how to tell
Sooner the
people to
better.
start school.
Okay. So with that being said, do I hear a motion regarding the mask?
I move that we go to the proposed health and safety protocols. As outlined in the superintendent's report.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. With that being done, we're gonna, what's that? Oh, with that being done, we're gonna close the meeting. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.